Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Aleksandra Małyska, and I have the privilege and the pleasure to be the moderator of today's session that will be focusing on microbiome. Microbiome is becoming a big topic. If you are following this field, and I'm guessing this is why you are present here rather than on all the other very interesting sessions that are happening in parallel, you probably noticed that the term microbiome, as well as its potential, is being recognized more and more. Only a few years ago, if you had asked people, if you had used the term microbiome, probably you would be faced with a very surprised face. People probably would be confused. Nowadays, most of us, and quite some regular citizens, are faced and confronted with the term microbiome. We are now witnessing international commercial campaigns that are using the terms, and they are focusing on the microbiome targeting, ranging from skincare to feeding infants. That's an opportunity, but also a challenge. As you probably are aware, microbiome might offer us breakthroughs for our society, ranging from providing better quality plant and animal-derived products, novel approaches in waste management, more sustainable agricultural practices, as well as transformative medical treatments. With all those microbiome-based products and solutions, we can really make a contribution to addressing climate change, to delivering on sustainable development goals, as well as on boosting Europeans' economy. But in order to make a real contribution, there is still some work to be done. We need an international, well-coordinated efforts that will focus and support not only research in the field, but also innovation and translating the results of the research into products and solutions that will provide the value for our society. And I hope that this session will help us to understand and answer how to do it efficiently in practice. And of course, I'm not the one that will able to give you the answers to a very complicated topic. And this is why I would like you to join me in welcoming internationally recognized expert in a field of microbiome. And with that, I would like to, sorry for the sound. I hope it's not very, I do not have a microphone on me. So maybe a step further. I hope. I hope it is a bit better now. So with that, I would like to invite our first speaker of the session, Professor Fabio Fava, a full professor of industrial and environmental biotechnology at the School of Engineering of the University of Bologna. He is a well-recognized expert in diversity of projects that is relevant for microbiome. He is also a national coordinator of Italian Microbiome Initiative, as well as representative of Italy at the Horizon 2020 Program Committee. So Fabio, please join us on the stage. Our next speaker is Professor Jeroen Ras, who is a professor at KU Leuven, as well as a VIB group leader. He is a well-established professor and expert that combines his knowledge and expertise in an omic database with the environmental and clinical data. He was also a member of the Microbiome Human Project, as well as a coordinator of the Flemish initiative on a gut microbiome. He was also involved in looking into oceans microbiome, so he has a very good expertise and overview of the different applications of microbiome. Jeroen, please join us on the stage. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, our third speaker was not able to join us, but I think that such a well-established expert, we can still manage the session. I would also like to inform you that by the end of the session, we will try to address and take some questions from the audience. So please stay with us, and you'll also be asked for questions and your comment by the end.
Questions.
I don't know. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I would like to start with a very general question, but something that might be relevant for our audience. I mentioned quite some things about the potential of microbiome research innovation. And maybe, Fabio, you could tell us how could the latest and the future developments in the field could contribute to more sustainable agriculture as well as to the primary production?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today with you. And yes, microbiomes are playing key roles in the primary production chain, for sure. Indeed, they are responsible for the major features, health and productivity of soil, and therefore marine sediments as well. Of course, plants, animals, and of course, indirectly also on the food and at the end of the story, on human microbiomes and health. And the idea is that they are interconnected. Those microbiomes are interconnected. This is the idea of One Health approach, One Health view. Indeed, microbiomes in soil rhizospheres, they are responsible for the cycles of nutrients, carbon fixation, so soil fertility. And at the same time, something similar is happening apparently in sediments. And of course, those microbiomes are affecting the microbiomes inside plants. The endophytic phyllosphere microbiomes are affected by soil microbiomes. The same for the animals, terrestrial and marine animals, water animals that we have. And this, of course, is affecting in turn food and, again, the so-called food system. The idea now that we have is to try to improve the productivity, the sustainability, the quality of products coming from the primary production by intervening, by managing one or more of those microbiomes. This, of course, is very important for many, many reasons. The organic farming, as an example, is prominent, is a growing sector in Europe. Such a type of farming can have great benefits from microbiome approach. But also the reduction of pesticides in the conventional agriculture can be achieved by exploiting microbiome systems. And again, we can continue reducing the antibiotics in the livestock and aquaculture production. And in the overall, we can improve by exploiting microbiomes the resilience of primary production versus a number of abiotic stresses. So we can have really great advantages in working on this area. But of course, we need a lot of more knowledge in the primary production pathway. We have a lot of knowledge, we will see from our friends, in the human microbiome. But in the first part, we need much more knowledge. We need to know more about microbiomes in soils, different soils, how the microbiomes are working, changing, in sediments, but also in crops and in animals. We know something about some of them. And very important is also to understand more about the interplays in between the different microbiomes, how they are connected. And this is very important for really having primary production more sustainable, more qualified, and also new products and specific products also. So we need to continue running research and innovation. You know that the Commission did a lot on this. Since the beginning of FP7 to date, they invested over 1.4 billion euros for sustaining research in the microbiome, all kind of microbiomes. 50% more or less of this budget went to support microbiome research in the human area. The rest are on the different microbiomes that I mentioned, and particularly during the last years, a lot have been invested in the interconnection of microbiomes in the primary production. This is, of course, very important. There are projects ongoing, many, and I am expecting that a lot of the new knowledge that we need for better understanding will come out very soon, because many projects are ongoing. Coordination support actions, very important for bringing things together, giving a global view on the point are running. So I'm expecting that a lot of new information is coming up very soon. Thank you.
Thank you for providing very interesting and broad perspective on the topic. And maybe, Jeroen, you could add a bit, focusing specifically on human health and well-being. What kind of contribution can we predict of the latest and future development in this area to help our citizens to feel and live better?
Okay, and also thank you for the invitation. I think in the area of human health and disease prevention, we have two areas where the microbiome is active. The first area is the area of diagnostics and prognostics. We can use the microbiome to diagnose disease in a wide range of pathologies, which I'll come back to later. We can use it to predict future disease. I think that's a very important area, the area of disease prevention, starting to see diseases coming up before the real phenotypes actually come up. And the third area is the prediction of treatment response. We see more and more evidence that the microbiota interacts with various drugs. We see more and more evidence that we can predict how a patient will respond to a certain treatment by looking at the microbiome of the patient. This is something which is, for example, very obvious in the area of immunotherapy in cancer. Now, but this is happening across very many diseases. So it's diagnosis, prognosis, preventative medicine, and predicting treatment response. That's on that one area. The other big area is the area of disease modulation. Recent innovations in quantitative microbiome profiling have enabled us to really pinpoint credible, reliable, replicating targets for a great number of diseases. It gives us very accurate information. There's more and more evidence for a real causal implication of various organisms and microbiota shifts in disease development and progression. In areas, I put a little list here, but it's very broad. In the area of autoimmune diseases, things like IBD, rheumatoid arthritis, something which is covered by the EU-funded SISKID project, for example. In areas like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, which is covered by the Metacardis project. Cancer, colon cancer, but also other malignancies are coming up. Then maybe less obvious but very, very interesting area is the gut-brain axis. There's more and more evidence now that the gut microbiota is implicated in things like depression, which is very interesting in terms of interventions also, because there's still a big need there. And then there's early evidence for other diseases like multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and whatnot. There, the evidence is still smaller, but also there's very interesting indications. So there's a broad range of indications where I would say we're moving beyond the hype, and we're actually getting good evidence of reliable results that are replicating in different countries where mouse models are showing causality. So we're getting much closer to that point where we can move into therapies. You also see that pharma is investing. There's tons of small companies being founded. It's only happening because the science is becoming very solid, and we're beyond this observational phase, I would say. And so the area where the microbiota in terms of treatments is really moving now is the development of drugs, but those drugs can have many flavors. It can be small molecules, it can be prebiotics, it can be other types of things, phages, various flavors that modulate the microbiota dysbiosis in certain diseases. And the other area is where the bugs become the drugs. Bugs as drugs is one of those keywords there, where we use the members of the microbiota as the future treatments. A next generation of probiotics, probiotics that are not coming from the food industry, probiotics that are coming from our own body. And that is an area where you see a very big boom also, and many companies, our startup companies are in that area. So for me, those are the two main areas where we're looking at diagnostics, but also at interventions.
Thank you. But before we really reach the full potential, I think it's very crucial to join our efforts. Fabio, you're a national coordinator of the Italian Microbiome Initiative. What do you think we could do to mobilize the efforts of the member states, really to make these contributions well-designed, coordinated, that could really have a real effect on environmental, societal, and economic impact for society?
Thank you very much. Well, it is, in my view at least, a microbiome innovation and sector is a relatively new or emerging area. Surely from the industrial perspective also, the citizen perspective. And what we have on the floor is clearly a strong partnership and capable scientists working already with companies in the area of human microbiomes. I think here we have strong potential already in place, but much less and fragmented is available in the other sectors that I mentioned to you, the other compartments of the food systems. And this is true in many European countries. For sure, it is true in Italy. We are strong or relatively strong in microbiome for health, for human health. And in the other sector, we have prominent scientists, fantastic scientists publishing fantastic papers, but they are working parallel. They are suffering for lack of infrastructures. They are not impacting towards the industrial sector. They are poorly present in the projects that I mentioned to you before. 545 projects funded by the Commission. We are in 5% of them as Italians. We normally are about 10% in the Horizon 2020 project. So we are below because we are fragmented and scientists and not the rest together. So we have companies in the biotech area, in the pharmaceutical, and also food and agriculture, sectors, very interested in join, but there are no interconnections. This is the reason why a year ago, the National Committee for Biosafety, Biotechnology, Life Sciences of the Presidency of Council of Ministers in Rome, which is mobilizing different ministers, regions, etc., decided to go for a national initiative. Surely for bring together the scientists first, that are working parallel. They have to be together. They have to share knowledge. We need to understand how the microbiomes are interconnected. So it's very important to have them there sharing what they are doing, what they knowledge. But also put together infrastructures. They are expensive. We have few. They have to be valorized at best. And then second step is put these scientists with the industries. We have industries. They have to work together. Just for improving the transfer of knowledge, but also, and in particular, for putting together also the investments, for maximizing, leveraging what they are doing. Also private money should be there, because public money are at the national level not so available as in the past. And then, of course, together they have to develop a strategy for the country, so research and innovation strategies, but also regulations, policies, other things very relevant for this sector, as in many other sectors. And then, of course, education, training, skills, and the communication with the society. So all this can be done if you are together. And we launched this initiative 1 year ago. Few scientists, volunteers put together a preliminary vision document that has been open to all major associations, scientific but also industrial associations relevant for microbiomes. We integrate the comments and then we published the vision document. This is the first step. But this was a very important step because this initiative has been quoted in the revised version of Italian bioeconomy strategy. So it's part of the Italian bioeconomy strategy now. And now what we are doing, and that we will do during the coming 2-3 months, by the end of the year, is to work with the industrial partnerships. In particular, we have at the national level clusters. So the best public and private actors working in the agri-food domain, working in the health area. So we will bring the vision document inside the systems, and together we will develop an implementation action plan. So priorities, strategic priorities for the country, and how we can also support them under all point of view, political, but also, of course, economic points. This is what we plan to do. It is very important for doing things in this area, fragmented but emerging, strategic, also for the new Green Deals that we are talking a lot during the last weeks, I can say, or months. They can play a key role, microbiomes, in this sense. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very good signal and message for Commission also, and acknowledging their efforts to bring the silos together. The topic of our session is not only focusing on gut microbiome and health, but also on food. And having experts like you representing different fields of microbiome, I think it's a stepping stone, very important thing to do to bring those different fields of microbiome together. But Jeroen, coming back also to your area of expertise, what do you think are priority topics for future research microbiome in the area of health, in the area of nutrition and well-being?
Okay, this thing. I think given the domains I've pointed out earlier, I think there's a few areas where support is needed or needs to be sustained. So in the area of diagnostics, I think the very important new direction there is prediction of future health. To prevent disease from occurring, we need to diagnose it very early on. And I think there the sustainment of large-scale population cohorts that are active in Europe is very important. Because only by monitoring healthy populations over longer periods of time on their health status, but also on their microbiota, we can develop such biomarkers to see health changes. And everybody knows there's an interesting time window between, let's say, 40, 50 years of age and 65, where a lot of health changes are happening. It's going to be crucial to follow exactly that period. To follow people in that period of their life to see whether we can identify novel targets and novel diagnostics. On the area of product development and innovations, I think, interestingly, I mean, I'm a child of the omics generation. We do nothing but using multi-omics strategies to study the microbiome, sequencing, metabolomics, proteomics, all these types of things. And yet, at the same time, we're coming to a realization as scientists that we need to go back to the old school microbiology. We need to go back to the bugs. Because we've done a lot of, we're still doing a lot of screening and monitoring, and at the same time we're realizing if we want to develop products, we need the bacteria themselves. A, the bacteria as the product itself, as a novel treatment, or B, if we're talking about pathogenic bacteria, we need the bacteria to develop drugs against these bacteria. And so I think there's an important need to develop large-scale repositories, culture collections of in my case, gut bugs, but it could be any form of microbiota. This is same is true in the plant world. It's the same in the food industry. That we have the organisms available for experimentation and to develop large-scale screens for their potential beneficial properties. I think that is a very important area. Because this will allow the development of drugs and the development of novel probiotics or combinations of bacteria as cocktails, for example. Another area that I find very important is the area of result replication. The gut, speaking for myself, the gut microbiota field is a field which has been suffering in the past from issues with replication across different cohorts. The reason for that is not the incompetence of the scientists. The reason for that is the fact that there's strong environmental effects. What you eat, how you behave, etc., has a strong implication on the gut microbiota. And so results from different countries were sometimes difficult to replicate. And I think more initiatives that allow replication of results between scientists, between cohorts, between clinical studies, intervention studies, I think that is very, very important. And then to conclude, I think the general feeling that I have about the field is that we're moving from this observational period in our field where we're identifying the signals and the targets. We're moving to an intervention stage where we have a lot of leads and now we need to develop them into products. So we need to design intervention studies, and so the support of innovative interventions in microbiome associated diseases, I think that is going to be the key direction we need to go in the future.
Okay, you were talking a lot about this transition phase and moving from observation to intervention, yes. But looking also a bit broader on the entire microbiome field, we are talking a lot about the potential. We are talking about the contribution potential and also some applications that are already contributing to improving our lives. But what do you think, how we could link the gap in a broader sense of microbiome, so not only looking on human health, in order to fill the gap between today's potential and tomorrow's application? Is there anything specific that needs to be done?
No, I'd like to correct a little bit what you're saying, because I think we're beyond the promise already. I mean, there's several microbiome-based drugs or products in phase 2, phase 3 trials, and there's rumors of phase 3 trials completing successfully. So we're not at that early stage anymore. I think we're getting there when microbiome solutions are actually starting to come to the audience. But I think the main catalyst to do this further is, I'm coming back to this, replication. We see the effort of taking a target into a drug is enormous, as always, in every field. And so we need to be certain about our targets. And I've noticed in my own research very much that only by replicating across cohorts we get it. And the plague of the field was that studies were not connected. Studies in different countries were not connected. And I think if there's one thing the EU can do, that is providing that connection between the different experts across Europe. They know each other, but they need mechanisms to work together and to replicate results. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is also linked, is about standardization. There have been already EU-funded projects on standardization of microbiome data and methodologies, but I think that needs to keep on going, because the technologies are shifting, there's new approaches appearing, and also there we need more standardization. And we'll probably need more standardization on the second level now, not only the monitoring, how is the microbiome looking, but also the standardization of the interventions, the way we're going to be doing the regulations on the bugs and things like that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there.
Thank you. Fabio, would you like to add any to that? You were talking a lot about the national initiative, but we are here in a more European context, so we are also mentioning the need for the international coordinated efforts, initiatives. Do you think there is something that could be done, that could be supported in order to make those international efforts more coordinated, how to stimulate this kind of collaboration to make it as much as efficient as possible?
Well, I mentioned it to you what we did at the national level. There are other 3 initiatives in Europe on microbiomes: Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Israel is associated country, but they are running this. We need to do this starting from the territory, because at the national level we have to bring the actors together. I fully agree with my colleague about what we need for the future. Cooperation, validation, standardization, communication, these are things that we need to do, but starting again from at the national level. This is very important. Then, of course, we need to bring these things together. The 4 strategies, as we mentioned before, that are on place, that already brought together things, specificities, coming from the territories, can be used as a pilot actions, as example. The Commission, again, thank you, because it's very, very important. The Commission put 1.5 billion for 535 projects on microbiomes, different pieces of microbiomes, different type of microbiomes. So this is a fantastic, I can say, richness that the Commission can bring together for also saying what has been done so far, what are the emerging areas on which we can work, but also what we should do for boosting what came out so far. So 4 strategies can be pilot. All the overview that you can make from the project funded already, closed in the past, and the ones running. CSAs, coordination support action, is very relevant because they are mapping these things. So put on this together and then work for understanding what Europe can do, and can do a lot at the European level, at the global level. I think this is a process that we can put in place, but we need to bring things together because the sector is really fragmented. So, thank you.
Yeah, there's one. My mic, yes. There's one thing I also wanted to add to that is it's not only bringing together people within one sector. We need to bring together sectors. The microbiome plays, as is it obvious from this session, takes place in the food production area, let's say the primary food production area when we're talking about cattle and soils, the secondary food production area where we're talking about making food products and functional foods and healthier products and all of that. And then there's the sector of health and pharma and disease. And these sectors, they don't talk. We have plenty collaborations with the different partners. We have collaborations with the giants in the food sector. We have collaborations with the giants in the pharma sector, and they're asking the same questions, but they're doing it from their perspective, from their way. And there's, I have the impression that both sectors they just want to, get into each other's fields, but I think there's much more cooperation that is needed there, because the questions are very, very similar. The goals are maybe different. The markets are maybe a little bit different. All this said, but I think there's a lot of interaction that still needs to happen. So I think initiatives that bring together these partners and bring together. For example, something about microbiota modulation strategies where you have both the food sector present and the pharma sector present, who come with their own mechanisms and standards and methods. I think that will lead to better products for the European citizen.
Let me provoke you a bit now. That's my role as a moderator. We are here to help the Commission to identify the relevant fields. This is how the co-creation is happening. Yeah. But what do you think about the communication with citizens on this topic? Is it something that needs to be included when we are talking about microbiome, that needs to be designed? And if so, how to do it efficiently? Or maybe you think it should be staying in these 4 walls with the experts deciding and discussing the topic? What is your opinion?
If I look at my area, the health area, I don't think we need to convince the public about the importance. the enthusiasm that I feel about my field in the general audience is enormous. People are very aware of this, and the reason why is because it's so close to themselves, and the excitement is enormous. You can just tell by the number of books that are being sold on microbiome recipes and these types of things. And so so that part is I think is for my area at least covered, in the sense that the enthusiasm is there and the demand is there, and that's why you see a lot of product development, because the companies know that there's a demand there. The area where we do sometimes suffer is the classic hype cycle that every field goes through, and the microbiome was very much hyped, which is, in my view, completely legitimate. But there was a moment where the communication was running ahead of the science, and people were making big promises, and where the scientists went like, well, we don't know yet whether we're going to reach those goals. As I said, I'm getting very optimistic that we will be reaching those goals. But we have to be very careful on that overselling part, and especially I think there the interaction with the press is extremely important. I've noticed multiple times in press communications that we make is that even if our press communications are quite sober and scientifically correct, that they start leading their own lives, and everybody interprets this way. We find an association between microbiota and depression, and in the press it becomes the gut bugs make you depressed, or they're going to cure your depression, and there's no evidence for whatsoever in that paper. So that's the type of that jump to causality is a big issue. And so I think that there is a task for us. And I don't know whether this is the Commission or us scientists, but there's a task to be very crystal clear about this. And we should also not be not patronizing citizens. Citizens are smart, and they know exactly what they do, and we need to take them seriously and speak in a clear, scientific, and not overhyped thing. There's too much hype in this world already. People are getting numbed by this. I think people like clarity. People like facts, and they want to know whether we will cure cancer, yes or no, and how long that will take. And they don't want to promise. They want facts.
Fabio, anything to that?
Well, I fully agree with my colleagues as usual. But if I think about the microbiomes in soil sediment, so primary production, the story, as I mentioned it to you, is different, because we know much less, and but we have to communicate, of course, the potential role, because I mentioned it before, the potential impact, really relevant impact on sustainability, productivity, quality of products. So we need to promote that piece as well, and to interconnect it to the health, which is well known. So the communication should be very well managed to do not have negative impacts, and it's very important to have again a system, no, and so in which also the communication is good, reliable. If you allow one colleague working in the soil microbiome can say some things, another one can say on the plants can say something totally different, and you lose the potential of the interconnection of the sector. So again, we need to go back to the strategy. We need to go back to partnerships, partners together, different sectors, but together with the industry, for providing a strong, unique message, one voice, which is clarifying the real potential of the interconnected sector, the food system. Because they know a lot, as you mentioned, we need to be careful, maybe too much, we need to control, but we need to interconnect all the rest, because the new Green Deals can better understand also that point of view. So together for a strong, clear, effective, robust, concrete message provided with one voice.
Just before the opening floor for our audience, maybe we are having this discussion in the context of the next big European framework program, Horizon Europe. How do you think, what kind of tools, approaches could be used within this big framework program to support microbiome research and innovation to contribute to the Green Deal and goals and very ambitious aims that are identified there.
Okay. Thank you. This is a very important question, and this is the right place for discussing, because this initiative has been done, I think, for checking what happened so far in Horizon 2020, check what we need for Horizon Europe. So I have few suggestions. I think the Commission did a great job. I think we are leading at a wide level the position on microbiomes. This thanks to the public money came mostly from the Commission, because we need public money for starting, and now we need to mobilize private ones. So what I think is that the Commission should continue supporting research and innovation in the different domains of the primary production chain. This is my feeling, because we need to work more there, because the systems are complex, soils are many. So you need to understand how microbiomes work in different kind of soils, the same for plants, the same. So we need to provide more info on this. And then we need to work more at the interface to understand how they are really interconnected, how one microbiome can interfere with the others, and how we can design a strategy for boosting or exploiting microbiomes for improving sustainability, productivity, and the specificities also that are coming from my different countries in Europe. This for sure is very important, continuing supporting this by looking at what has been done so far, checking what was successful, what not, and so on. And the other point, I'm an industrial biotechnologist, and for sure we need to better check what the knowledge developed so far in microbiomes can do at the industrial level for producing new chemical, new material. Fuels are not so high-cost products, but sophisticated molecules that we can produce, also new, totally new, by exploiting the microbiome systems, of course, in particular confined environment. This to optimize the industrial processes that we have in place, but also to develop new processes, producing new molecules. This is very important. Of course, we can be more competitive, as you know very well. We can be more sustainable. We can be more green, and so on. So these are few suggestions for the future actions of the Commission. Thank you.
Yeah, from my point of view, I'm going to put on my other hat, and that's the hat of being an environmental microbiologist. The importance there is in that area is that we make sure that we keep and sustain a healthy environment. The part of the Green Deal for me is not only the sustainability in the production, but also the sustainability in having a healthy living environment. The microbiome, also there, the microbiomes of the different communities, they play an important role in there. One area is the whole area of ocean microbiology, where we've seen that the oceans are the lung of this planet, and they are essential in combat and using those or exploiting those or helping that as a thermometer for climate change, as maybe a modulator even for combating climate change, preventing ocean acidification and these types of things, I think is important. The other area I think is very important is the urban environment. What is the importance of microbes, free-living microbes in urban environments? And I'm not talking just the built environments, also the areas, the few patches of green we have still left. We know that there's very important processes happening there. There's also CO2 conversion in little lakes in cities and things like that. So what we need to do is we need to also I think support initiatives where we look at our own local environmental communities in the built and in the urban environments we live in to create better, greener, healthier environments for our citizens.
Well, it seems it's not only the partnerships, but a great potential of microbiome to contribute to the missions that will be also discussed throughout the days. Not only the climate, the soils, but also the cities, as you are mentioning.
And the sea oceans, as you mentioned, a very
yes.
important step.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for your contributions. I think that we had a very good starting point, an overview of the field. And with that, I would like to open the floor for our audience. I can already see one question. I will come with the microphone. Oh, perfect.
Good morning, citizens. My name is Angelos Harlaftis, Epaphos Advisors. We represent here the aging and DNA community of universities and laboratories. And the question is, of course, a comment to the gentleman that has spoken that only the experts should be on a field, which is, according to our opinion, it's very mistaken because as many people from the citizens we have around the science, then the science is enriched by various ways, and it's not only the money field, it's also the knowledge, because in the future society is a knowledge society for which we are working. So as many citizens they are nearby to you and they are informed by you, they will assist your attempts. The experts also, they have fields. They have the progressive research, they have the current running science, and they have the old also. So the citizens, they have a lot of things to choose from all this kind of stuff. The democracy is the most important thing, especially in Europe. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can only agree. I mean, we do a lot of citizen science projects, and as you say, the knowledge transfer goes both ways. I think we by interacting with citizens in, for example, in our national microbiome project, I think we as scientists have been inspired a lot. I get tons of emails every day from citizens saying like, well, I have this and this illness, and I think this has something to do with my guts, or I have people coming to me saying like, I had this problem, and my grandmother always told me that I should be eating these and these vegetables, etc., etc. And all of these little hints, I mean, you have to take them for what they are, but they do provide inspiration, and especially in the area of the intestinal and the area of fermented foods and these types of areas, we have a long legacy of knowledge that is in our history that is being rediscovered by scientists through the interaction with citizens. I can give you one example, is the area of fecal microbiota transplantation. I'm sorry to do this to you this early in the morning, but this is an area where we're transplanting healthy microbiomes in patients with severe illnesses. Now, this is a practice that goes back ages. It's been mentioned in ancient writings in China. It's been used by veterinarians. It's used by Bedouins in the desert, etc., etc. And for a very long time, it was in that alternative medicine corner. People like, yeah, whatever. Now it is for Clostridium difficile infections. It is a therapy that is one of the most recommended. And so, and it's that knowledge that is out there, which can, I am absolutely convinced, can contribute to our science. So I completely agree in engaging citizens in this, because I sense this every single day.
Maybe here in the front.
Good morning, my name is France Lanès. I'm working for a Belgian company active in the field of probiotics. Okay. And you mentioned probiotics in your presentation. Probiotics are now recognized as having an impact on health, but currently this cannot be supported by medical allegation. So I'm speaking about the regulatory framework. Yeah. You mentioned also that pharma companies are investigating such field. Does it mean that in the future probiotics must be considered as classical drugs? So it means that classical clinical studies must be conducted, and you mentioned also the fact that it is already difficult to replicate some results. You mentioned also novel food, so I would like to have your opinion about that, because there is research project, but research must be translated into product that must be launched on the market within some regulatory rules.
Yes.
So I would like to have your opinion about that.
It's a fantastic question, because it shows exactly what I meant with this. We need to integrate the pharma field and the food sector. And the probiotics sector is somewhere in halfway there, right? And so, okay, I am not a regulatory expert, but the signals that I'm getting from various players and various interactions is that slowly but surely, especially the next generation of probiotics, starting from intestinal bugs, is moving more towards the category of a drug. I see food industries spending more time moving into clinical trials. The fact that pharma is pulling is inevitable, and the competition that pharma is pulling, and that these drugs are entering severe diseases and trials in patients. I think it's almost inevitable that we will be moving to a drug classification of probiotics, at least in the sector of disease. There is the sector of well-being and maintenance of health, and the food additives sector. There, I think, are still some opportunities, especially for Geras stage organisms. But I think when we're talking about chronic disease, I think my feeling is that it's moving towards really drug-like regulatory processes.
Good morning. My name is Angela Sesic, and I'm coordinating the CSA Microbiome support. First of all, I would like to thank you for all your comments. I fully agree with all what you said. I have actually a question or a comment related to the previous statement. So we talk a lot about microbiome innovations, applications, but it seems that the regulatory side is far behind of science. And I have a very general question. I mean, how do you think we could improve this situation? Because we need really adapted regulations for really bringing new applications and products on the market.
I can repeat my point. You mentioned the point, but I can also add that the different countries will have different regulations. This is another point that we normally have in all the other areas. So it's not a matter of lack of regulations at European level, but very often is a problem of differences in the country level. And in Italy, we have 21 regions inside. We have differences inside the regions. So that is the point. The solutions, again, initiative, bringing things together, interacting with the ministers, and above the regions in the case of Italy. So to have, at least at the national level, a way to face some of the constraints that you mentioned. And then, of course, you can bring these things if you are putting together initiatives, etc., at the European level. But there are no other ways. This is my personal experience in other sectors as well. We need to put things together to be strong, to highlight together one's voice, very strong. We need this. Otherwise, we cannot continue working. We cannot transfer. At this national level, bringing things, the national things, and go to the Europe. This is my personal suggestion.
I think it's the same. We need to. The only way is to have initiatives to put pressure on the agencies. But what I see now in Belgium is that companies who come with products, they basically they go straight to the agency is called FAG, where they negotiate their trials, because there's no real regulatory framework yet. They're putting the agenda. That's what's happening now. So companies are pushing their agenda with the agencies. Same with and then the next level is for example EFSA, where also there we need to put a lot of a lot of pressure to build regulation. The FDA in the US is investing heavily on regulation. I think Europe should do so. Do so as well. And I'm talking from a health perspective, but of course the regulation in terms of environmental products is just the same. I know that the food sector and the pharma sector are pushing heavily. I'm only assuming you know better than me, assuming that agro is doing the same. I think there's a product development on all fronts, so we need to get that framework there to support all the trials, the clinical trials or the field trials. It's the same. We need that.
Thank you. Just very quick last question, gentleman in front. And just to add what you have said, I think that having these national initiatives and encouraging and engaging with policymakers early enough to make them aware about the regulatory problems, potential problems, is extremely important.
Hello, thank you. My name is Alfred Grand. I'm an organic farmer and I'm a member of the Mission Board for Soil Health and Food. So I really want to thank you for that workshop and for the contribution that you have to the microbiome. My question is, if we think about fermented food, because we are also growing vegetables and we want to go into fermenting these vegetables like kimchi or something like that, if we think about a fermented food, how do you think does it contribute to human health in general? And is there a difference between the resources? So if you go an organic vegetable or conventional or hydroponic, as an extreme example, is there a difference in the quality?
Well, this is a very interesting topic on which I think once again we need to continue working, running research, especially for the point how contribute the microbiomes coming with respect to the fermented, so the microbes there. I think we have to better define this. We need to better work on this but for sure it's very important. So it's very important and play a key role, as you know very well, in the human microbiome and health. So we need to do more here, for sure. And fermented food are very well protected from other, because the microbes that you are exploiting there are prevalent, of course, prevailing on the ones coming from the raw materials. But I think we need to work on this, especially in the organic farming, because this is a peculiarity that should be clearly communicated.
I think originally fermented foods were there because for food preservation. That was the classic thing. But what we're seeing more and more, or it's one of those cases of rediscovering old traditions, I would say. They are not only there because they allowed people to keep their food longer. They're also there for the health benefits. I think there's much clearer evidence that there is a beneficial, that there are beneficial properties in the probiotic bacteria and the fermentation products that are present in fermented foods. It is a legacy that we are forgetting. Interestingly, there's a big revival in the public. We're talking about the citizen cooperation. You can't imagine the excitement in the general public about sourdoughs and kefirs and all types of fermented. Everybody's fermenting at home at the moment, and the big 3-star Michelin chefs are fermenting. And there's a rediscovery from a culinary point of view, but there's also a rediscovery from a health point of view. The only thing is, there's not so much science behind. There's science of the fermentation process. That is well studied. But the science of the health benefits, I think there's a lot more we can do now. A lot of the new technologies that have been used in the microbiome field to study health benefits of fermented foods have not been applied yet in the extent that they should have been in checking the health benefits when in doing trials. Again, we're in the intervention stage, and intervention with traditional fermented foods, I think, is a very exciting area to look into.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time. Unfortunately, we could, I think, keep talking about this subject for hours. If you are very interested in the field of microbiome, I also encourage you to visit the WOW projects. There are several that are being present with coordinators that can tell you a bit more about what is happening. And with that, thank you very much for your contribution and active participation. And please join me in thanking once again our speakers of the session.
Okay. Just, it's my next one. Just a small pitch. I see Yolanda has has arrived. So all your questions you have on the food sector are with
for
Yolanda.